Late at night in Harlem, inside the Cotton Club, the champagne is cold and the neighborhood outside is hungry. A white boss crosses the room and the band cuts out. Before dawn, a body turns up in a place that never sees spotlight. Then another follows, and the street stops treating it like coincidence. The man who came to humiliate someone in public leaves smiling. By the time the week feels half spent, he is no longer speaking like the winner. Ellsworth, Bumpy, Johnson sits under the stage lights and does not move. He gives one sentence, and the city starts counting in silence. What kind of order is powerful enough to make men disappear without anyone admitting they saw it? Tuesday morning, Harlem sanitation rounds. A metal drum sits behind a warehouse like it belongs there. It does not. A worker leans in. He recoils. Then he runs for help. Inside is a man who should have gone home the night before. A collector. A working piece of an operation that printed cash in quiet rooms. Pinned to his clothing is a message in block letters. 1 down, 7 to go. Leave Harlem. That is not a threat written for him. It is a threat written for the living. Police arrive and do what police always do. They separate the crowd. They look for witnesses. They ask for names. Nobody offers anything useful. The note is taken as evidence. But the note is not evidence. It is a schedule. The body is not a tragedy. It is a receipt. By mid-morning, the story is already moving faster than the patrol cars. It goes from barbershops to stoops. From policy runners to men who never place a bet. From Harlem to the Bronx, where the money is counted. A powerful man hears about it over breakfast. At first, he treats it like noise. Then he hears about the note. Then his face changes. Because the note does not ask for negotiation. It announces a countdown. The next day, an envelope appears where it should not be able to appear. Under a door. Pass guards. Pass locks. Inside is the same handwriting. 1 down, 7 to go. It is placed like an appointment reminder. The afternoon does not even reach its end before another body is found. Different street. Different building. Same finality. A shot. A placement. A note. 2 down, 6 to go. Men assigned to protect him are found nearby. Protection did not matter. The third comes quickly. Too quickly. A man is discovered in his own space. The kind of place you believe is safe because it has a door. The note is there again. 3 down, 5 to go. The city starts to understand the pattern before the papers finish printing it. These are not random killings. They are not spontaneous. They are not meant to be hidden. They are meant to be noticed. This was not an accident. This was not anger. The precision is the point. 1 per day, or close to it. Fast enough to keep fear from settling into routine. Slow enough to make every sunrise feel like a deadline. In back rooms, men stop speaking in full sentences. They use glances. They use hand signals. They use silence. Because names have weight now. Names feel dangerous in the mouth. In Harlem, doors close earlier. Storefronts empty faster. Men who used to stand in the open shift deeper into shadows. And the ones still working for the outsider. The ones collecting. The ones enforcing. They begin to look at each other like the list could be in any pocket. Another day. Another envelope. Same handwriting. Same arithmetic. Another death. Then another. One in an alley. One in a restaurant. One in a car in plain daylight where the city cannot pretend it did not see. Each time, the note arrives with the same plain certainty. A number. A remainder. A command. Leave. The powerful man who thought Harlem was a business move starts living like a man under siege. He adds guards. He doubles men. He changes routes. He makes calls. He offers money. He makes threats. He still cannot touch the source. Because the source is not standing in the open. The source is not arguing. The source is not performing. The source is issuing decisions. Somewhere behind all of it is a single moment that does not fit the normal rules. A public insult. A challenge delivered in a room full of witnesses. A laugh that was too loud. A calm reply that was too quiet. A deadline given like a judge closing a file. And then a week where the city counts bodies like days on a calendar. 8. That number begins to travel ahead of the facts. Men repeat it with lowered voices. Cops repeat it with frustration. Gangsters repeat it with a new caution in their tone. 8 men dead in a week. Not in a riot. Not in a shootout. Not in a chaotic street war. In a sequence. With notes. With intention. The neighborhood watches the outsider pull back. The neighborhood watches him lose pieces that cannot be replaced quickly. Because the men who do the work, the collectors, the enforcers, the managers, they do not want to be next. By the end of the week, the last note reads like closure. 8 down, 0 to go. It does not sound like victory. It sounds like policy. It sounds like a rule being written into the underworld. And it leaves behind one question that matters more than all the gun talk and all the bravado. Who had the power to promise this and then execute it? To understand how this happened, we have to go back. It starts in a room that was built to sell glamour. Harlem, but not for Harlem. A stage, a spotlight, white money at the front tables, black labor on the bandstand, illegal liquor moving like it is legal, and a kind of safety that only exists until it doesn't. On a Monday night, the place is full. The show is running clean. The crowd is loud enough to hide private business. Men with power sit where they always sit. They do not look at each other unless they have to, because looking is a kind of challenge. Near the back, Bumpy Johnson sits alone, not performing, not smiling, not drinking like a man trying to be seen, just watching, quiet enough to be ignored. He is not ignored by everyone. Dutch Schultz is there too, a man built out of money and appetite, a man used to rooms changing temperature when he enters. He has a table near the front. He has men around him. He has the kind of confidence that makes bodyguards feel unnecessary. Alcohol does its usual work. It strips patience. It adds volume. It turns private contempt into public decisions. Schultz stands up, not because he has to, because he wants to. He moves across the club with purpose. Hard steps. No caution. His men follow a half step behind, too late to stop what is already happening. People see it. They do not speak. They watch the way people watch a match being carried toward paper. Schultz reaches Johnson's table. He strikes the wood with his hand. A glass jumps. Liquid spills. And he speaks loud. Not to Johnson alone. To the whole room. He does not talk business. He does not talk terms. He talks hierarchy. He uses racial language that is meant to put a man back in his place. Even in that room, in that era, it lands heavy. The band hesitates. The room goes quiet. Not because anyone cares about politeness. Because everyone understands the danger of public disrespect. Schultz keeps going. He treats Harlem like a possession. He treats black operators like employees who forgot they were employees. He treats the neighborhood like something that can be bought and disciplined. Johnson does not rise. He does not reach. He does not posture. He just looks up. No expression. No heat. No visible reaction. That calm is not softness. It is control. Schultz finishes the performance. He waits for the kind of fear he expects to see. He does not get it. Johnson finally speaks. His voice is low. A sentence, delivered like a formality. You have 7 days. Silence holds. Johnson does not add drama. He adds terms. White men running policy in Harlem will die after that deadline. Not arrested. Not warned. Dead. He says it without raising his voice. He says it like a rule already exists, and he is simply reminding Schultz of it. Schultz laughs. A real laugh. The kind that tells a room he believes the matter is settled. He turns it into theater. He makes Johnson's calm sound like a joke. He makes it a story he can repeat later. He tells Johnson what he thinks the world allows, what it does not allow, what a black man is permitted to threaten, what he is not. Johnson gives him nothing back. No argument. No anger. No second sentence. He finishes his drink. He stands. Slow. Measured. And he walks out. People move out of his way as if space itself is safer than closeness. Schultz watches him leave. Still smiling. Still sure. Still convinced the insult did what insults are supposed to do. He stays in the club. He orders another drink. He repeats the story. He enjoys how it sounds in his own mouth. And that is the mistake. Because the public part is now done. The private part begins outside. Harlem at night. Streetlights. Dark windows. Men on corners who see everything and say nothing. Johnson steps into that air and does not hurry. He is not running from humiliation. He is walking into decision. He has been watching Schultz for months. Not the man. The method. How he pushes. How he buys. How he threatens. How he uses violence like a tool and expects the neighborhood to accept it. Schultz had resources Harlem operators did not. Money. Connections. Police pressure when he wanted it. Relief from police pressure when he paid for it. And an army of men who did not hesitate to use guns. That kind of advantage breaks most resistance. It broke others. It drove older figures out. It made businesses fold. It turned street crews into quiet employees. But Schultz did not understand what he was trying to own. Policy was not only numbers. It was trust. It was routine. It was women and men handing over coins because they believed the game would pay when it had to. It was a neighborhood economy with rules. Schultz brought outsiders to collect. Collectors who did not live there. Collectors who did not care who hated them. Collectors who talked down to the people they took money from. That creates resentment. Resentment turns into information. Information turns into vulnerability. Schultz also did something else. He made his violence visible. He used fear the way a hammer uses weight. He did not care who watched. He did not care who remembered. He did not care who lost family and began to wait for payback. He made martyrs without realizing it. And then he did the one thing that changes business into blood. He made it personal and public. He gave Harlem a moment everyone could repeat without embellishment. A white boss using racist contempt on a black boss. In a room full of witnesses. He thought it was dominance. It was a gift, because it turned retaliation into permission. It gave Johnson something that money cannot buy. A justification that the neighborhood would accept. A reason for people to stay silent when asked questions. A reason for doors to stay closed. A reason for strangers to suddenly become loyal. Johnson reaches his building and goes inside. He does not sleep. He calls in men he trusts. Not loud men. Not reckless men. Men who can follow instructions and hold their tongues. A small group. Enough to do work. Few enough to control. He does not talk about pride. He does not talk about feelings. He talks logistics. He talks targets. 8 names. Not random. Not symbolic. Operational. The men who make the Harlem machine function for Schultz. Collectors. Enforcers. Managers. People whose absence creates collapse. Johnson lays out the structure. Silence first. He disappears. He closes what needs closing. He stops being visible. Because a visible man is a target. Then precision. 1 per day. Fast. Clean. Certain. A note on each body. A number. A remainder. A command. And a final element that matters more than the dead men. The message has to last. It has to reach beyond Schultz. It has to travel to every white operator who will ever come north with money and contempt. It has to teach restraint. Not through speeches. Through consequences. Someone asks how they survive what comes back. Johnson answers without emotion. He explains the obvious. If Harlem does not give him up, he cannot be found. And Harlem just heard the insult. Harlem just saw the disrespect. Harlem understands what the countdown means. By dawn, the plan is no longer a plan. It is an operation in motion. Johnson leaves with a small case. He steps into a car. He vanishes. And in the same early hours, the first man on the list is already being taken off the street. Not as a warning, as confirmation. The first target does not know he is a target. He finishes his route like he has finished it for months. Cash. Slips. A final delivery. A last turn onto a street that looks the same as every other street. Then the street changes. A car blocks him. Men appear where there were no men a moment earlier. A door opens. A hand points. A voice gives instructions that are not negotiable. He is removed from his own seat. His car is taken. He is taken somewhere that has no reason to be open that late. A place with thick walls. A place that belongs to no one on paper. Hours pass. No gunfire in the street. No chase. No noise the neighborhood can name. That is the point. When he is finally left behind, he is left in a way meant to be found. Not buried. Not hidden. Placed. Pinned. Numbered. The note is simple. 1 down, 7 to go. Leave Harlem. When the drum is opened, the men who see it understand something before any detective arrives. This is not about that man. This is about the next man. And the next. Police take statements. They get silence. Not because people are brave. Because people are practical. Harlem knows what happens to the person who helps the wrong side. Harlem also knows what it heard the night before. A white outsider used racist contempt in public. A black operator answered in private terms. Now the private terms are becoming public. By breakfast in the Bronx, Schultz hears the first report. A body. A bad one. He shrugs at first. Harlem kills men. That is not news. Then someone tells him about the note. He stops eating. He reads the words again. He understands the purpose. A countdown is not a feud. A countdown is an algorithm. Schultz does what powerful men do when they feel control slipping. He orders motion. Find Johnson. Bring him in. Kill him. Kill anyone close to him. He sends men into Harlem with money. Then with threats. Then with both. They walk into barbershops. They walk into storefronts. They walk into hallways. They ask questions like questions are harmless. They get eyes that look past them. They get mouths that do not open. They get shoulders that rise and fall. Nobody knows. Nobody saw. Nobody heard. The problem is not that nobody knows. The problem is that nobody will say. Schultz doubles guards on his Harlem people. He tells them to stay in pairs. Then in threes. He moves men into new apartments. He switches cars. He changes routes. He tells himself he can outmuscle a list. He believes protection solves everything. It does not. An envelope arrives. Under his door. Inside his headquarters. Past men who swear they watched every inch of that hallway. Same block letters. 1 down, 7 to go. This time it is addressed to him without using his name. Because it does not have to. It is not personal correspondence. It is a bulletin. The afternoon delivers the second proof. A body is found in an abandoned building. One shot. A neat ending. Two men assigned as security are found near him. Their presence did not slow the decision. A note is pinned. 2 down, 6 to go. By nightfall, the story is no longer contained in Harlem. It moves through midtown clubs. It moves through downtown offices. It reaches men who do not care about Schultz or Johnson. Men who care about precedent. Because if a list like this can be executed once, it can be executed again. And if it can be executed against a powerful white organization, then the rules are shifting. Schultz calls meetings. He slams fists into tables. He promises punishment. His men nod and leave and try to do the impossible. Find a man who chose to disappear. In a neighborhood that chose not to betray him. The third death arrives before anyone can pretend the second was an anomaly. Then a fourth. Then another. Not all the same method. Not all the same location. But all with the same signature. A number. A remainder. A command. Leave. Schultz begins to understand what he is actually fighting. Not a street brawl. Not a single trigger man. Not even a rival looking for profit. He is fighting a machine built for one purpose. To make him withdraw. To make him do it publicly. To make him do it in a way everyone will remember. Because the memory is the real weapon. And the list keeps shrinking. In Harlem, people start marking days without speaking about them. They watch the newspapers. They watch the police cars. They watch the white men move faster and look more afraid. And somewhere out of sight, Johnson stays absent. He does not appear at corners. He does not send messages through loud mouths. He lets the notes speak for him. He lets the bodies do the rest. Schultz wanted a humiliation to echo. Now he has one. But it is not Johnson's. It is his. By Friday, the fear becomes operational. Not gossip. Not rumor. Procedure. Men who used to walk Harlem like owners start moving like fugitives. They do not linger at corners. They do not stop to talk. They do not accept invitations. They do not sleep in the same bed 2 nights in a row. Schultz orders more protection. More guns. More cars. More eyes. He starts paying for information twice. Then 3 times. He starts promising rewards and punishment in the same breath. It does not change the pattern. Because the pattern is not reacting to him. It is ignoring him. Another body appears. In an alley. Not far from where money changes hands. The death is direct. The message is not. 5 down, 3 to go. The arithmetic is doing the talking now. And arithmetic does not argue. That same day, another man is killed in front of witnesses. A place with plates on tables. A place where people pretend violence cannot enter. 2 men come in. They do not shout. They do not threaten the room. They walk to the target. They end it quickly. Then they leave. No chase. No dramatic retreat. Just absence. The note arrives. 6 down, 2 to go. That is when the week turns for Schultz. Not because he cares about 2 men. Because he realizes what the numbers mean. It means Johnson's people can enter any space. It means they can leave any space. It means protection is an illusion if the neighborhood is not cooperating. Schultz begins to see the real battlefield. Not streets. Not guns. Consent. Silence. The refusal of Harlem to help him. He tries to force it. He sends men to press shopkeepers. To press doormen. To press policy runners who know everyone. He offers cash. He offers work. He offers safety. Then he offers pain. Harlem keeps its face blank. It keeps its mouth shut. Schultz is not being resisted with bullets. He is being resisted with absence. He is being resisted with closed doors and no names. He is being resisted with a community decision that does not need to be announced. He meets with his lieutenants. He talks about burning the place down. Not metaphor. He talks about doing it literally. But even that has limits. Because Harlem is not a single building you can torch. And because the heat would come down from every direction. Police. Politicians. Other rackets. Other bosses. Schultz is reckless, but he is not suicidal. He needs an exit that saves face. He cannot find one. Saturday arrives. And with it, the kind of death that turns a private war into a public alarm. A man is found in a car in a part of the city that never wants to share headlines with Harlem. Midtown. Daylight. The kind of street where businessmen walk fast and pretend they do not see what they see. The note is pinned. 7 down, 1 to go. This is the moment Schultz stops pretending the list might break. He barricades. He surrounds himself with men. He watches windows. He watches doors. He watches shadows. He sends a message to the last man. Hide. Do not answer knocks. Do not trust voices. Do not open anything. The last man does what he is told. He goes to a safe house. For armed guards. An address that should be unknown. A room that should be secure. Sunday comes and stretches out like a threat. Hours pass. No body. No note. The guards start to believe the night might end without a knock. Then the knock comes. A woman at the door. A wrong apartment. A mistake. A voice that sounds normal enough to be believable for 1 second. One guard opens the door. The room becomes fire. Not slow. Instant. The guards run the only direction left. And outside, men are waiting. The safe exit is not safe. It is a funnel. A trap built around the belief that there is always a back way out. The last man tries a window. He does not make it. When the fire is finally controlled, the body is recovered. Burned. Broken. And still carrying the remainder of the message. Part of the note survives long enough to be read. 8 down, 0 to go. That is not celebration. That is closure. Monday morning arrives. And Schultz receives the final communication that matters. Not in a courtroom. Not in a negotiation. In the only language that has been used all week. Consequence. He is told to shut Harlem down. To remove his operations. To pull his people. To stop. Because the list is finished. And the next list will not be confined to Harlem. Schultz understands what that means. It means the boundary has moved. It means Johnson is not just protecting territory. He is setting a rule. Schultz wanted Harlem because it printed money. Now Harlem is costing him men. Costing him stability. Costing him reputation. Because every day he stays and loses another man, he looks weaker. And weakness is contagious. By Tuesday evening, the Harlem operation goes dark. Collectors disappear. Enforcers stop showing up. Policy banks close. The machine that was built to take Harlem is dismantled in a day. Not because Schultz was defeated in a street battle. Because he was defeated in public memory. A week earlier, he laughed in a nightclub. Now he retreats quietly. And in Harlem, the silence changes shape. It is not fear anymore. It is satisfaction that no one admits to. A kind of agreement that the neighborhood has reclaimed itself without signing anything. Then Johnson reappears. Not announced. Not escorted. Just walking the avenue like the week never happened. A ghost returning to the street that protected him. Reporters ask questions. He gives nothing that can be used. A short denial. A simple statement about the neighborhood. He does not claim the bodies. He does not have to. Because the underworld already learned what it needed to learn. Disrespect has a price. And in Harlem, the bill gets paid. Harlem. A room built to look like peace. The Cotton Club is full. White suits at the best tables. Black musicians under the lights. Illegal whiskey poured like it is part of the menu. The laughter is loud. The music is louder. The kind of noise that lets dangerous men pretend they are just customers. Ellsworth, Bumpy, Johnson sits near the back. Alone. A bourbon in front of him. His eyes fixed on the stage. Not smiling. Not talking. Not announcing himself to anyone who wants a story to repeat later. He is there like a measurement. Dutch Schultz is there too. Closer to the stage. Where money likes to be seen. His table is protected by men who do not touch their guns unless he looks at them. He drinks. He watches the room the way an owner watches a building. He does not look toward the back until something inside him decides it is time. He stands. Slow at first. Then with purpose. His chair scrapes. It cuts through the music for a moment. People notice without meaning to. He starts walking. Not drifting. Not strolling. Walking like the floor belongs to him. His men rise late and follow. They are not leading him. They are reacting to him. The crowd's noise lowers. Not because anyone respects manners. Because everyone knows what it looks like when a powerful man moves in a straight line. Schultz crosses the room. His face is red. Whiskey and anger mixed together. He arrives at Johnson's table. He does not bend down. He does not try to keep it quiet. He strikes the tabletop with his hand. Hard. The glass jumps. Liquid spills. A small sound. But in that room it feels like a gunshot. The band falters. A horn drops out. Then another. The music dies in pieces. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Chairs stop moving. Eyes turn. This is not a private dispute anymore. Schultz speaks. Loud enough for the room. He uses the kind of language that is meant to reduce a man in front of witnesses. Racial contempt. Open. Deliberate. Not coded. Not implied. He talks about Harlem like it is a project. He talks about policy like it is a toy he can take. He talks about black operators like they exist by permission. He calls Johnson boy. He says Johnson is nobody. He says Johnson should be grateful for whatever scraps are offered. He makes it clear he believes the world has one order. And that order sits in his mouth. The room stays silent. Because even men who profit from cruelty understand one rule. You do not humiliate a serious operator in public unless you are ready for what follows. Johnson does not move. Not at first. Not at all. He does not reach inside his jacket. He does not stand. He does not flinch. He looks up at Schultz like he is reading a document. No emotion on his face. No visible anger. No fear. Nothing that Schultz can grab and turn into another insult. That absence becomes its own answer. Schultz keeps going. He leans into the moment. He wants the room to witness dominance. He wants a lesson taught at volume. Johnson waits. He lets Schultz finish. He lets the contempt sit in the air long enough for everyone to taste it. Then Johnson speaks. Quiet. So quiet that people closest to the table have to lean forward. His voice is flat, not soft. Flat. He does not argue the insult. He does not defend himself. He does not explain Harlem. He does not explain dignity. He gives a deadline. 7 days. A standalone sentence. Heavy enough to stop Schultz's breath for half a second. Then another sentence. Simple. After that, any white man found running policy in Harlem dies. Not arrested. Not warned. Dies. Johnson does not raise his voice to match Schultz. He does not perform for the room. He speaks like a man stating a rule he expects to be obeyed. Schultz reacts the way arrogant men react when the world refuses to bend. He laughs. Big. Loud. He wants the room to laugh with him. He turns his head and shares the moment with the crowd like it is entertainment. He repeats the deadline as if repeating it makes it harmless. He calls Johnson's statement ridiculous. He says Johnson has only 2 futures. Submission or death. He says it with the confidence of a man who thinks the world is fixed. He says it with the cruelty of a man who believes race gives him authority everywhere. Johnson does not respond. Not with words. Not with posture. He lifts the glass. Drains what is left. He stands. Slow. He does not shove the chair back hard. He does not bump Schultz. He does not look at Schultz again. He walks past the bodyguards. Past the tables. Past the stage. The crowd parts without being told. People lean away as he passes, as if proximity itself could become evidence. At the door, he pauses only long enough to step into the night. He disappears into Harlem. Schultz stays inside. He sits back down. He orders another drink. He tells the story like he already won. He treats the insult like it was the whole event. He does not understand he has just created the event. What followed was not immediate. When Johnson left that club, he did not go looking for a fight. He went looking for leverage. He had already watched Dutch Schultz for months. He had watched the takeover strategy. Bribes first, then threats, then bodies. Schultz did not just want Harlem money. He wanted Harlem obedience. He believed he could buy it. He believed he could scare it into place. He believed white power would do the rest. Johnson understood something Schultz did not. Policy was not only gambling. It was circulation. It was neighborhood trust. It was women on stoops handing over small bets because they believed the payout would come back. It was runners and collectors who survived because the community tolerated them. Schultz brought in men who did not need tolerance. They relied on fear. They relied on insult. They treated people like a resource to be stripped. That kind of operation can grow fast. It can also rot fast, because resentment becomes information, and information becomes a map. Johnson walked Harlem streets with that map in his head. Every corner, every hallway, every back room where money moved, every face that watched and remembered. Schultz's mistake at the Cotton Club did not create anger. It created permission. It gave Johnson a public reason to act without looking like a greedy rival. It turned business into defense. It turned retaliation into community pride without anyone having to say the words out loud. That was the shift. And Johnson moved on that shift immediately. He went to his apartment. He did not sleep. He did not pace. He did not talk about what was said. He talked about what would be done. He gathered his inner circle. Men who did not drink too much. Men who did not brag. Men who could sit in a room and listen without asking questions. He did not tell them to kill Dutch Schultz. That would have been loud. That would have been suicidal. Schultz was protected. Schultz had police connections. Schultz had the kind of power that invites a citywide response if he falls. Johnson wanted the machine to fail without touching the man at the top. So he named the parts. Collectors. Enforcers. Managers. The men who made Harlem money reach Schultz's hands. 8 names. 8 functions. 8 weak points. He gave instructions like an accountant. 1 per day. A note on everybody. The note was not decoration. The note was the weapon. A countdown forces panic. Panic forces mistakes. Mistakes create openings. He told his men to keep their own faces unseen. No boasting. No public celebrations. No street talk. Only the work. Then he made the move that mattered most. He disappeared. Not as a fugitive. As a strategy. Because Schultz would hunt him. That hunt would consume Schultz's attention, while the killings consumed Schultz's operation. Johnson's absence would create a false impression that he was hiding, that he was scared, that he was breaking. Schultz would lean into that belief. He would get careless. He would push his people harder. He would keep them in place. And that meant they would stay available. Johnson's men asked the only question that mattered. How do we live through the retaliation? Johnson answered with the only real defense. Schultz cannot kill what he cannot locate. And Harlem will not locate him. Not after what was said in that room. Not after the insult was broadcast like a declaration. Harlem would do what neighborhoods do when an outsider shows contempt. It would close ranks without holding a meeting. It would protect its own without calling it protection. At dawn, Johnson left with a small suitcase. He did not take a parade of men. He did not take noise. He took quiet. He became a ghost. And while Schultz was still believing the night ended with laughter, the first man on the list was already being hunted. Not for profit, for policy, for the rule Johnson intended to write into the underworld. You can take money. You can take territory. But if you bring contempt into Harlem, it will cost you bodies. The second envelope is not delivered by mail. It is slipped, quiet, deliberate, under a door that is supposed to be controlled. That detail matters more than the words inside, because it means the perimeter is already compromised. Schultz reads the message and hears the same thing twice. A number, a remainder, and a tone that does not ask for permission. 1 down, 7 to go. He does not show fear in front of his men. He shows anger. Anger is safer. Anger keeps lieutenants from smelling weakness. He gives orders. Find Johnson. Find the men around Johnson. Lean on Harlem until somebody talks. He sends crews north. They move through the neighborhood like they own it. They stop men on the sidewalk. They question runners. They pull doormen aside. They walk into back rooms and make their presence felt. And Harlem gives them nothing. Not because Harlem is innocent. Because Harlem understands what is happening. People remember the Cotton Club. They remember the volume. They remember the slur. They remember the way a white man spoke in a black neighborhood like the room belonged to him. Harlem does not need to be instructed to keep its mouth shut. Silence becomes a form of participation. By Wednesday afternoon, the second death makes the note real. A man is found in an abandoned building. A clean execution. Quick. Professional. His bodyguards are nearby. Dead too. Protection is now part of the body count. Pinned to the dead man is the same arithmetic. 2 down, 6 to go. Schultz reads it and realizes the list is not just targeting workers. It is targeting his response. Every guard he adds becomes another potential corpse. Every show of force becomes another opportunity for humiliation. The killings are not only reducing his manpower, they are controlling his behavior. That night, Schultz tightens the net. He orders his Harlem operators to move, to change apartments, to stop predictable routes. He assigns escorts. He tells them to travel in numbers. He wants to deny Johnson's people easy access. But a list like this does not depend on easy access. It depends on patience. It depends on observation. It depends on Harlem being full of eyes that are not loyal to Schultz. The third death arrives before the changes can take hold. A man is found at home. Not a battlefield. Not a corner. At home. The message is clear. There is no safe space inside Harlem if you are on the list. Pinned to him is the next step. 3 down, 5 to go. Schultz starts to break the week into hours. He stops sleeping properly. He stops eating in public. He stops leaving rooms without checking doors twice. He brings in more men. He brings in harder men. Men who have no patience for Harlem's silences. They threaten people who cannot give answers. They slap faces. They break storefront glass. They demand names that no one will speak. And every act of pressure pushes Harlem further away from him. Schultz thinks fear will produce cooperation. He does not see that fear can produce the opposite. It can produce loyalty to whoever looks like protection. And right now, protection looks like the man who was insulted in public and answered with a countdown. By Thursday, the notes are no longer just warnings. They are a clock that Schultz cannot slow. An envelope, a message, another body, each one a confirmation that somebody is inside his operation, or inside the neighborhood, or both. It does not matter which, because the effect is the same. Schultz is spending his energy chasing a ghost, while the ghost's hands are dismantling the Harlem machine piece by piece. And the men still assigned to collect policy money start doing something Schultz cannot tolerate. They start to hesitate. They start to look for excuses. They start to ask for transfers. They start to talk about pulling out before they become a number on a note. Schultz hears those whispers. He reacts with threats. He tries to force loyalty at gunpoint. But forced loyalty is brittle. It snaps under pressure. The killings keep coming. And the notes keep counting. The week is now a corridor. Schultz is walking down it. He cannot turn around without losing face. He cannot keep walking without losing men. Johnson does not need to appear. Johnson does not need to speak. His message is arriving on paper. His authority is arriving in the form of bodies. And Harlem, watching all of it, understands the real point. The outsider wanted control through contempt. Now he is being taught control through consequence. Monday morning comes back like a verdict. The week is finished. The numbers are finished. But the message is not finished. Dutch Schultz wakes up in a city that now repeats one story without embellishment. A public insult. A 7-day deadline. 8 men dead. Harlem closed its mouth. And the outsider backed away. Schultz does not get a triumphant exit. He gets a retreat. Quiet. Necessary. He shuts down what he can. He pulls men out who are still breathing. He abandons the machinery that was built to take Harlem piece by piece. Because the cost is no longer money. It is credibility. Every dead collector makes him look unable to protect his own. Every note makes him look commanded. And a man like Schultz cannot afford to look commanded. Not in Harlem. Not anywhere. The underworld reads it the way it reads everything. Not as morality. As precedent. They understand what the week proved. A black operator can enforce a boundary. Not with speeches. With discipline. With selection. With timing. And with a neighborhood willing to turn its face away when strangers ask questions. That is what makes the lesson durable. Because it is not only about who fired shots. It is about who controlled silence. Johnson stays out of sight until the withdrawal is complete. He does not rush back to claim credit. Claiming credit creates targets. He lets the rumor do the work. He lets the fear travel on its own legs. Then, when the timing is right, he returns. He walks Harlem like the streets belong to the people who live there. Not like a king. A fact. Reporters try to catch him in words. They ask about bodies. They ask about notes. They ask about Dutch Schultz. Johnson gives them nothing they can print as proof. A short denial. A short statement. Harlem protects its own. He does not say his name again. He does not need to. The men who matter already understand who authored the week. Schultz never comes back north. He cannot. If he does, Harlem becomes a calendar again. And calendars do not negotiate. Not long after, Schultz is dead elsewhere. Not killed by Johnson. Killed by the kind of underworld politics that removes men who create too much noise. Too much heat. Too much instability. His Harlem campaign becomes a cautionary tale told in back rooms. Not because he lost money. Because he lost control. Because he laughed at a deadline. Because he treated disrespect like it was free. The lesson stays alive after the bodies are buried. White bosses learn to measure their words in Harlem. Not out of kindness. Out of calculation. They learn that contempt can trigger consequences they cannot price. That power is not only guns and money. Power is also the ability to make a neighborhood refuse you. To make men vanish. To make a week feel like a prison. And in Harlem, the story settles into a rule that does not need to be written down. If you come into that neighborhood to take. If you come in speaking like you own the people. If you come in believing race gives you permission. You may get away with it once. You may even laugh. But you will spend the rest of your days wondering what day the counting starts.